Well, hello, Internet. This is Con back and doing things a little differently. This is not a normal 3PP3 podcast, but instead we're going to be doing a movie review, a full spoiler movie review. And you might be asking, when I say we, who do I mean? Well, we got a special guest today. My special guest, my lovely special guest, do you want to introduce yourself?
Certainly, I'll be happy to. My name is Sezgo, and I happen to be Majian's lovely wife.
Awesome. And we don't use that moniker no more. Majian has been retired, love. We go by Khan. Good old Khan here. But that is fine. Mrs. Khan is here, known as Zezko. We went recently to go see Joker, and yeah, it left an impression, wouldn't you say?
Definitely left an impression. I will say that for sure.
So we're going to talk about it. Just to let everybody know, this is a full spoiler review. So if you haven't seen the movie, you don't want any part of it spoiled, please do not continue. Stop. Go see the movie. It's awesome. Come back and then play us, or else we will ruin everything for you about this movie. So without further ado, let's get into the Joker. And let's go into a little bit of a review. So I'll let you start off, Zesco. Tell me, before we get into likes, dislikes, actually no, that's part of dislike. How about you tell me a short summary review of how you felt about Joker with your likes and dislikes?
Sure, I'll be more than happy to. First and foremost, I have to say the cinematography of the film was amazing. And the just overall tone of it just really, it resonates with you. It makes you feel like you're in the movie, that you're feeling a lot of the things that the main character are going through. And that's some of the pros. Some of the cons are that I think it's so jarring that it may kind of make some folks a little bit uncomfortable, but I believe that was the whole intent, is that the movie wants you to be uncomfortable, wants you to feel this unrest and to feel like you're not quite in control of the situation, because that's how I felt, at least. A con, though, definitely is that it is so extremely jarring that it makes you probably not want to watch it again for a while. I will say that, at least for myself, I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I saw it, but I don't want to see it again for a while.
Interesting. If you don't mind, I'm going to piggyback off of you for a moment. I agree with you definitely 100%. The cinematography, the coloring, the camera work was beautiful. I think the dialogue was good. It worked very well. Joaquin Phoenix, I'm sure everybody's already heard, he's an awesome Joker. If you want to call him Joker, we'll say Joker for right now. He does encapsulate the feel of the Joker, but it's his own version of the character. Joker is very interesting and can be very different depending on who portrays it or which version of the Joker you want to portray. But I agree with the cinematography. In terms of it being disturbing, yes. It's a look into mental illness, a character study, as you could say, about mental illness, and I agree, it is disturbing. I don't look at that as a con, but I do agree with you. I can see how that is a con. For me, it was I don't want to say it's part of the charm, but it helped me to engage the character more. I actually started in the beginning just feeling so bad for the guy. Like from the beginning part where you see him putting on this makeup and he's just outside of the business that's going out of that's shutting down. He's just doing his job because he works for a company that basically just outsources clowns for whatever clowns are needed for. And these kids come up and they beat him down, and it's just the start of what you just see throughout the whole movie, which is that society just kicks and beats him down consistently. And yeah, with you, yes, it is. I guess I'll let you elaborate. When you say jarring, what parts do you mean that are jarring to you? So I'll let you elaborate before I comment on that.
There's a lot of points in the movie that are extremely jarring, but one of the most significant ones is his body. Whenever you see his emaciated body, because he is just skin and bones, you can really see the bones jutting out of his skin, looking like they're going to just rip right through. He looks like he's sick. He really looks like he's sick. And you just want to give him food. You want to give him a hug. I mean, it's one of those movies where if you're an empathetic person, you're just going to be really upset because you're like, why? And I think that's part of the reason why they did what they did, and it's very effective that way, because it does make you feel empathy toward him.
Yes.
Definitely. Especially if you've ever had hardship, which most of humanity, I think, has had a fair bit of hardship.
Yes.
Especially the working class. You feel that working class pain. Where you're just struggling to make ends meet, and it just seems like every time you think you're getting ahead or at least succeeding, something comes along and beats you down. And when he starts to kind of finally evolve, I'll say that word, evolve, you see a lot of little things change in him.
Yes. You're talking about when he actually takes on the actual persona of the Joker.
Even before he takes on the persona, when he starts to think that he's kind of figuring things out, because he hasn't quite taken on the persona, but he's starting to figure out, I have power.
Yes.
I've been so afraid to do these things because, and I don't want to get too far ahead, but there's things that he finally just lets go of. And when he finally lets go of those things and he starts just taking the power that is available to him, his whole demeanor changes. The way he walks, the way he holds himself, all of that changes.
Oh yeah, he gets a swagger with him. He definitely gets a swagger. Interesting fact, Joaquin Phoenix, for the role, to just show how much he was for that role, he actually lost 50 pounds to make himself look that emaciated, as you were talking about before with his body. He actually lost 50 pounds just for this role, so he could look like that for that role. And that's crazy. That's crazy that he went that far for just this one role. But how did you feel about Joaquin Phoenix's acting?
I think his acting was really good. Again, this is not the Heath Ledger Joker. It's not the oh my goodness, I can't think of
Jack
his name.
Nicholson.
The first Jack Nicholson. Thank you. It's not really the first, but Jack Nicholson Joker. Even
Mark
though
Hamill.
I will say it's probably, or the Mark Hamill one. It's probably a mixture between Heath Ledger and Mark Hamill, though.
Yes, I agree.
And it's much more grounded in reality.
Yes.
Because the Mark Hamill one is kind of, over the top, cartoony. It's perfect for what we wanted in those movies and in the shows. But the Heath Ledger one was a bit closer to the no, there's no a bit. That one was very mentally disturbed as well.
Yes.
Very. And grounded in reality, but there was still a little bit of kind of over-the-top showmanship about it.
Mm-hmm.
Where this is very gritty and dark and grounded hard in reality. And
yes.
You see where he starts to kind of slip out of reality.
Yes.
And as he starts to slip, you start seeing him transforming, and he's kind of going past the Heath Ledger into the Mark Hamill.
Yes.
And it works beautifully.
Yes. I agree with you. I think it was just the way he looked with the actual makeup, which is kind of different than the Jack Nicholson. That kind of gave me a little bit of the Heath Ledger because it just looked so realistic, and you could see that the way that he applied the makeup, he was just off, mentally just off with it. So. Yes. So that I definitely got that vibe. So we're gonna go into it from let's actually start from the beginning. So beginning of the movie, we see him get beat up. He goes and he talks to the psychiatrist, right? And one of the themes that I brought up when we first saw it was, I think a lot of the complaints people have with this movie is that they say it glorifies violence and mental illness. But in my stance from watching this movie, I think it's the opposite. I think it shows as basically a poster to say, hey, this is what can happen when we don't treat those things. And when you look at it, like, for instance, we'll just start from the beginning. We'll go up to just the beginning part, and I'll let you elaborate too. It's like from him getting beat up by the kids in the beginning, going to the psychiatrist, which he said he actually asks for more pills. I don't think it's working. I need doctors to up my dosage. You're not listening to me. No one listens to what I have to say. I think it's a nice example to show that the world itself, the way we are and the way society is, we just move past everything. We're so concerned with ourselves, our family, our friends, that we just ignore a lot of this stuff, and it just festers, and it just festers and festers and becomes this ugly, disgusting monster that now we have to fight against. And I think this movie, at least just even starting from the beginning part, kind of showed the outline that this was the guy who understood that he had issues. He understood that he even had dark issues, and he was trying to get help. But Gotham in itself just failed him. In the beginning. And I'll let you go ahead and elaborate on that beginning part, and anything else, of course, you want to add to in terms of the beginning part. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So one of the things, just to kind of bounce back, you mentioned his first job that we saw in the movie, at least, which was him standing outside of a store that was going out of business with a sign, and he's just advertising for this going out of business.
Yep.
Business or store. Bunch of kids, they probably have nothing better to do because it's a rundown area. They grab his sign, run off with it. He runs after them. Now, I know it seems like it's not a big deal. Like, why would you run after a sign? But it's his job. And he's very serious about this job. He takes his job very seriously. On top of that, it's the property of the store. So when he goes and tries to get the sign from the kids, they jump him. They beat him up.
Yep.
They also hit him with the sign, and the sign shatters. So not only does he not finish his day of work because he got beat up, he lost the sign because it got destroyed. And of course, he's hurting. And the only thing that is even relevant when he goes back to work is, why did you leave your post? Where's the sign at? The store owner is very upset, and he wants the sign back.
Yep.
And even though he explained to his boss, well, some kids stole the sign, and I had to run after them and get it, and then they beat me up. The only thing the boss cared about was, oh, well, the store owner wants his sign back. You have to give it back, and if you don't give it back, then it's going to come out of your pay.
Yep.
Didn't care about what happened to him.
Yep.
It was obvious he'd been beaten up. You could see the bruises on his body. But the boss didn't care. All he cared about was his business and doing good business, not his employee who was hurt, who had been trying to do his job and had been thwarted by a bunch of punk kids who stole it and ran off with it and then beat him up.
Can I say one thing? No, that's very interesting. You brought up a good point, but they're crying about a sign for a company that's going out of business.
Exactly. That's
why did like yeah. Who cares? Good.
I mean, it could have been written on cardboard. It wouldn't have really mattered at this point. I'm just saying. But they value the sign more than the employee. And that's something else that I'm going to bring up later.
Yeah.
And even his boss was like, well, who would run after a sign? It's not a big deal. And yet he made a big deal about, well, we're going to have to take it out of your pay if you can't, cough it up.
Yep.
And you could already tell this guy doesn't eat. He's very thin. He's taking care of a sick mother.
Yep.
He has a whole bunch of prescriptions, and if you know anything about pharmaceuticals, the more pills you get, the more expensive they seem to get.
Yep.
And if you have to take them, regularly, it adds up quick.
Yeah, he was on 7 different medications.
7 different medications.
Yeah.
And they still weren't really actually helping him. As you had mentioned when he went to see his psychiatrist, who was actually a social worker.
Mm-hmm.
She was a behavioral specialist, I believe. But you could tell even from looking at her room, her office, she was extremely overworked.
Mm-hmm.
She really wasn't paying him much attention because she probably, for all we know, he could have been her 20th or, whatever person to see that day.
Yeah.
But she was extremely overworked.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't really as forthcoming as he could have either. But I think that's because they didn't have a good relationship or interaction.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking more of, because he was saying, "Hey, I come here, you ask the same questions, and you never actually listen." And I think that's he was just burnt out. He was like, "Hey, dude, why I'm wasting your time? You're wasting my time. So let's just go through the motions."
Yes, give me more pills. I'll get out of your hair.
Yep.
That's it.
Yes.
And that was pretty much what he got from it. So you have a boss that doesn't care. You have a psychiatrist who doesn't care. You have, I hate to say it, but in some ways a mother who doesn't care. Because she was so disconnected.
Yeah.
That she couldn't connect to him emotionally.
Yes.
So you have this person who feels extremely alone in a society that's just beating him down.
And to work off what you said, if you think about it too, when you go, let's go to the mom for a bit. The mother didn't even know him at all. Like he would come home, he would get mail, he would look for mail, mainly from Thomas Wayne, because the mother would write letters to him consistently. And they would watch a show. He would get dinner on what they would watch a show together, right? Which was the show played by Robert De Niro's character. It's like
Franklin, I think.
Yes, and he was basically a late night TV show. But if you listen to a lot of stuff, she didn't know her character. Like she would say, "But you have to be a comedian. You're not funny." And then she would say something else. That was like a slap to his face of everything that he wanted to do. And I'm like, wow, the one person in this world who should love him, who should accept him for who he is, and he gets nothing even from them. Go ahead. Go ahead. I didn't know if you wanted to add anything to it. Go ahead.
No, I agree. And that's one of the things. Now, you could see that he loved his mother very much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He cared about her and cared for her very much.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if she truly reciprocated those feelings. I will be honest. It felt more like she wanted him to be a prop. She wanted him to be this perfect little, angel, or this ideal that she had, more so than actually recognizing the person that he was.
Yes.
And we definitely need to talk about his uncontrollable reaction as well at some.
When you say uncontrollable reaction, what do you mean?
His laugh.
Oh yes, yes. So yeah. Let's go into that because that was a very interesting point of the character that I liked. I actually enjoyed it. So there's a sequence we see after he gets done talking to the psychiatrist, and this was in the trailer also, where he's on the bus and he's riding the bus back, and the little boy's making faces to him, and he sits there and he makes fun faces like most adults do to try to cheer up a kid, and the kid's laughing. He's having a good time. He's feeling good about it because he's doing something. He's a clown, He's an entertainer. He's bringing joy. As his mom said, you will bring joy to the world. He's bringing joy to this kid. So it's making him feel good about himself. And then the parent turns around and says, hey, leave my kid alone. Stop, leave him alone. And he just starts, and he starts making these noises. And we did hear it in the beginning when he was first talking to the psychiatrist. In the beginning, but we didn't know what it was. And then he hands the woman a card that says, hey, I may start laughing. I'm not laughing at you or the situation. This is a mental illness. Please, be understanding to it. Please give me back the card. So his laughs, though, if you listen to him, they change, though. And as we discussed before, we used to think that the laughs only came out during nervous parts, because once he took the full persona of Joker, you didn't hear him laugh unless he wanted to laugh. So that nervousness where he would break down and he would start laughing uncontrollably, you never heard later on in the movie. But go ahead, what did you want to add on to the laughing part?
Well, no, you actually did hear him laugh several times in the movie. The uncontrollable laugh. Now, one of the things with the uncontrollable laugh, though, is usually it was sparked when he was under a lot of stress.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an uncontrollable reaction to the stress that he had. And sometimes, especially when somebody has a lot of stress and strain on them, and they keep bottling it up and bottling it up and bottling it up, the body has to release it somehow.
Yeah.
And that's where you sometimes have these uncontrollable actions and reactions from the body. And this is one of those cases, I think.
Yeah.
So laughter was just because it was just the stress of life weighing down on him. Now, the card itself and the information you get regarding the mental illness and the laughter also kind of denotes that it's because he had head trauma previously.
Yeah, we could go into that. So the head trauma thing is interesting because I don't want to go into the conspiracy, because it comes down to two things, right? Because there's the one thing with this movie, and we're going to go into it later, is that you find out early on is that everything you see may not truly be as it is. This character, how he perceives the world, it changes consistently, right? And we saw when he was watching the show, and then he was in the crowd with the late night show, and Robert De Niro's character Franklin introduces him down. He tells a joke about how he takes care of his mother, and everybody loves him, and it's so wonderful, and he's so adorned. They're like, oh my God, this guy's a great character, and we all find out that's just in his head, right? So going back to the abuse part, right? The part when he's looking, and so we'll go into abuse and then we'll go into theory afterwards. So it came out later on that he was abused by his mother. Well, no, excuse me, abused by her boyfriend or whoever she was dating. He was tied to a radiator and he suffered head trauma. That was what happened, right? They said he was handcuffed to a radiator and he was beating him and her, and that's where he got the head trauma.
Yes, the boyfriend had beaten her up, and then had handcuffed him to a radiator and beat him up as well. Okay. And he had suffered severe head trauma.
So that offers me a question too with this here. So was he still raised by his parents, by his mom, even though he was an abusive? Because wouldn't they take away the kid? Since supposedly he was adopted, which came out in the story supposedly, that he was adopted because the ongoing story was, is he possibly the son, the love child of his mom and Thomas Wayne? But the papers and everything state that it's he was adopted. So wouldn't they take him away from his mother if she was institutionalized? Like, who raised him as a kid? Makes you wonder, right?
Well, supposedly, according to the story, he was adopted by the mother.
Mm-hmm.
And she was raising him and then hooked up with this boyfriend who started abusing her and their adopted son, which is the Joker.
Correct.
But that may not completely be the case.
Exactly, because she was institutionalized, to my understanding.
There's a lot of things that don't quite add up.
Yes, which will go into our theories. But yes, the laughter comes into being. We'll come back to this part because it comes back into the theories. It comes back into the theories of what's real and what's not.
Well, I would say this, that there is a quote from I believe it was the director.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, the writers, Phillips and Scott Silver, of the Joker movie, that they did base his laughter and his mannerisms on real mental illnesses.
Yes.
And they stated that it could be laughter or crying. People are afflicted in different ways. Some people cry from this and some people laugh.
Yes.
And it's always at the wrong moment, and it really is painful.
Yes.
Now, this trauma can happen from head trauma as a young person or even older. It also happens from multiple sclerosis. I can say the word.
Yeah.
Multiple sclerosis, or MS.
Yes.
They didn't want to necessarily give him MS, so they went with the head trauma instead.
Gotcha. Okay.
And this is a quote from, I'm going to give the source, Movie News on Screen Rant, by Sanda Schaefer.
Awesome. Yeah, I do remember early on when they were talking to Laughter to Joaquin Phoenix, he did say yes. He was basing it off of an actual illness, and they actually, like the way he does it in terms of the way he would emulate it, he would have to do it because it would actually hurt them when they did. So that's very interesting that you say that. But too, also, as a person, like for instance, sometimes when I see graphic stuff, like super extreme graphic stuff, I'll start laughing. And it's not I'm laughing because it's funny or it's good. It's just like a reaction that I have to gruesome things. I don't know why, but sometimes I'll just start laughing. I don't know if you've ever done that before. Like you see something and it's like you just start laughing. I don't know if that's ever happened to you.
Well, I haven't laughed at gruesome things. I will say that I tend to try to avoid the gruesome things. I have laughed at things that have made me very stressed out about, when I'm so stressed out that I'm like, wow, what else could possibly go wrong? And I'm so frustrated that I have to kind of laugh it out because I just got to get out that frustration somehow. And that's what I'm talking about when I was saying it's a reaction to stress for a lot of people too.
Yep, and I agree. So we don't. We're about the 30-minute mark, so we're going to hurry up so we can go into the theory, so this video is not too long. So let's jump into. Let's go to basically the middle and the end of the movie, right? So real quick, so we'll jump into the middle. After he gets jumped, guy at his job gives him a gun. And unfortunately, that gun comes out during one of his performances at the children's hospital. To me, that was one of the funniest moments ever. His reaction when it came out, and he picks it up and he looks, and he just puts his finger over his mouth to everybody to be just like, shh. I died laughing at that part. It was just too good and too great.
Yes.
But we see him, he loses his job, everything starts falling down. He starts to try to track Thomas Wayne down because he wants to find out, is Thomas Wayne his actual father, because he saw one of the letters from his mom where his mom stated that he is the son of Thomas Wayne. That didn't go too well. And then, okay, before that, of course, yes, he shot, with the gun that he got, he shot 3 people who were bullying him in the subway, which of course started, as you stated, the revolution. And then we get to the point where he basically finds out the truth, and he basically becomes the full Joker. His altercation with his mom, and his altercation with the cops, and so forth. So real quickly, I know I went through a lot, but middle and ending. Tell me what you thought about the middle of the ending. Spoil away whatever scenes you want to talk about, and then I'll go into maybe some of the stuff you did cover or didn't cover afterwards.
That was a huge broad stroke. So I'm going
to
backtrack a couple of things.
Yeah.
There's some very important things to kind of hit on here.
Okay.
One of the major things is the scene when he is on the train.
Okay.
They showed a little bit of that in the trailer, I believe, where he was getting beat up by the rich corporate guys.
Wall Street, yep.
Yeah, Wall Street. So what's really important to understand is that right there was kind of a breaking point. That was a major breaking point, and it was a breaking point for him, but it was also kind of a breaking point for the little guy, the blue collar worker, the downtrodden of Gotham. That's really what it symbolized, because he's just one of the downtrodden of Gotham. They work all day, they get nothing for it practically. They're barely scraping by, and life is still just crapping on them. Meanwhile, the rich in their ivory towers are talking about making change and making things better, but they're really just giving lip service, and they're not addressing the real problems.
Correct.
And so you have this man who has just had possibly the worst day of his life.
Yep.
Sitting on the train, minding his own business. He sees 3, stock market, Wall Street guys, drunk.
Yep.
And they're laughing and messing with this woman who's sitting on the train by herself.
Yep.
And because of his nervous tic, he starts to laugh.
In full clown outfit.
Of course, in full clown outfit, because, that's his profession. He's a clown.
Yep.
And they come over and start messing with him. Decide to beat him up. He's not actually messing with them. He didn't try to come over and stop them from doing what they were even doing. And in the end, when he's down on the ground again, being beaten up by another group of people again, when he didn't do anything wrong, he finally snaps and fights back. He has the power to fight back, and he does that. He uses the gun, and he shoots them. Now, I don't really think he meant to kill them. I think it was just him trying to defend himself, because he was flustered, and I'm not giving him any excuses. Don't get me wrong, guys. Because I do not condone anybody killing anybody else. I do not condone, gun violence, any of that stuff. But for this film, what they were showing is that breaking point for someone who has just had everything taken from them. And they finally say, I don't care. I have to fight back finally. And he was fighting back.
Can I interrupt 2 things in that one sequence? And I'm glad you brought that sequence up. Joaquin Phoenix did an excellent job at that point. So when the girl walks off after he tried to offer to fry and he's laughing at the situation, she steps away and they come to him. When he's doing his nervous laugh, if you look at him, it looks like he's crying because he knows what's going to happen. He doesn't want to laugh, but he can't stop it. And if you look at his face, it looks like he's crying, but he's laughing. And I think Joaquin Phoenix in that one sequence did it perfectly as they're moving back the wig, and you see him, and he's laughing, but you see in his face that he does not want to laugh at this situation, and he does not like this situation at all.
Yes.
And I thought he did a beautiful job in that one sequence. This acting, I can't even give him enough respect for it. It was beautiful. And then
yes.
You said a point about he didn't want to kill him. I agree that he probably didn't want to kill him. But after that first shot, it seemed like a rush of power to him. Because at that point, he turned differently. And the second person, he definitely wanted to kill. And the third person, he definitely wanted to kill.
Again,
Yeah.
I believe the reason for that is because he finally felt like, I am fighting back. These people are hurting me, and I'm fighting back. And he realized he had the power to fight back. Because all the time, he'd always just taken it when other people hurt him. Taken it when somebody took something from him, insulted him, all these other things, he kept taking it. And this was a time where he finally fought back and realized he had the power to do so all along. Now, one other thing you had mentioned about the laugh, he was looking for his card. He gave the card to the woman on the bus with the little boy. Right. She never gave it back.
That's right.
So that's why he didn't have his card to give.
Yes.
But he was looking for it. And I think he even said, my card, I don't have it.
Yeah, it was such a great scene. So, did you want to elaborate more before going to another scene on this one, or?
Well, this was a catalyst.
Yes.
This event catalyzed him and catalyzed Gotham, the slums of Gotham.
Yes. I agree with you 100%. Because Thomas Wayne basically made, in a sense, what came next.
Yes. Yes, he did.
When he was looking at it and he said, all you people who are supporting and looking at this guy as a vigilante, you're all a bunch of clowns. And from that point on, they all start embracing it, saying that we are clowns with the signs, start wearing clown masks. He kind of made the bed that he was going to basically lay in, later in the movie. So,
yes. And Murray Franklin gave him the name.
Yep, that is true. That is true. So yeah, so we'll get to that. We'll jump a little bit further. So after this happens, he goes home. I believe at this point, this is where he ran into Zazie Beetz earlier in the movie, but at this point he worked up the confidence, and I'm using air quotes that you can't see, basically to go to her and say, hey, give her a kiss and say, let's go out, let's be together. It all came from after this, him exerting his force, gaining the power, as you stated before, and becoming the Joker, right? So now we start to see little slight changes now in all of his personalities, right? Of who he is and what he wants to become. So go ahead. What's the next sequence that you wanted to talk about going forward?
Well, I know that he kind of did that interesting, almost ballet thing where he was...
Oh, yes, in the bathroom. Yes, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. And that was him kind of embracing himself and realizing, this is me, this is my skin. I'm starting to feel powerful. I don't feel afraid anymore. Now, granted, he may have also been out of meds.
Yes.
Because that was one of the issues, is he wasn't getting his refills anymore.
Yes. He actually commented before about not having any medication or being off of his meds. He did comment that. Yes, go ahead.
But that's when he was starting to feel powerful. Mm-hmm. And you could tell that he was starting to feel that power because he was taking those chances he didn't take before. Like, he went to a comedy club and he actually got up on stage and did his act.
Yes.
As you had stated, he, quote unquote, got up the courage to talk to the girl that he liked.
Yes.
So he was starting to make his fantasies his reality.
Yep. And he also was later was able to get into the Franklin show when they showed off his comedy sketch. Of course, it wasn't the way he wanted it to be. As we saw in the previews, it didn't kick off the way he wanted it to kick off. They were basically laughing at his comedy, more so into embracing it. But it did allow him to get onto the Franklin show. And he did get, he did have, things seemed to be going his way. So he decides, he reads the letter, he goes to the hospital, and it's an interesting scene because he asks, and this comes back to the ending part, he asks the worker, he says, how do people get into this place? And how do you get into basically Arkham Asylum? It wasn't Arkham, it was some kind of mental hospital, but we all know it's going to become, Arkham later on. And he was basically telling them, I'm not a doctor, but, there's multiple ways of getting into here. And then from there, he finds out that he's adopted, that all the stuff that he heard before from his mom may not be true. And then he goes off basically to meet Thomas Wayne to try to figure this out, which gives us a beautiful scene in the beginning when he first meets Bruce Wayne, young Bruce Wayne. What did you think of that sequence? Go ahead. What's that?
I think that's actually backwards. I believe he met up with Thomas Wayne first. Thomas Wayne is the one that told him that she was meant that the mother was meant to
No. He got it. He didn't. Wait. Maybe you're right. Wait. Yes, you are correct. You're correct. He meets with Thomas Wayne first, yes. He tells him mental, which causes him to then go to the mental hospital to validate. You are correct.
Yes, he met with Bruce Wayne
first, yes.
He met Thomas Wayne.
Yes.
Because he read the mother's letter, confronted her, and she was upset and locked herself, I believe, in the bathroom and
yes.
Yes.
Funny
and then
sequence.
He decided to go to the Wayne Manor.
Yes.
And at the Wayne Manor, he saw a little boy, and he started doing his magic tricks for the little boy at the gate, trying to get the little boy to open the gate for him, and that was Bruce Wayne. And then I'm gathering that was supposed to be Alfred that came up and shooed him away.
Yeah, I still question whether it was Alfred.
I'll say Butler.
Yeah, I'll say Butler, because Alfred, well, keep in mind, this is all, you make your own version of the movie, but Alfred's supposed to be an MI6 agent, special agent, and the way he manhandled this Butler, clearly he was not
very MI6.
Yes. But how did you so you said you believe he was trying to open the gate. You didn't think he was just looking at Bruce as, hey, this is my son, because he did see a picture, right, of the Waynes when he was on the train. He did see the picture of the Waynes themselves. He ripped it out, and I think he put it in his book. Was that before or after? I think it was
before.
Before, yes.
That was after he found out about everything with his mother and the Waynes, and he got that image from the paper, ripped it out, and put it in his book.
Yes.
He was trying to get Bruce to open the gate.
Do you think so?
He did the open sesame thing that a magician would do, like presto, and he was trying to get Bruce to open the gate.
Gotcha.
He did it like 3 times.
Okay. Interesting. So you didn't think it was just more of the, hey, this is my brother, possibly. Let me entertain him.
I'm sure he was also trying to entertain him, trying to get him to smile, which, Bruce was being Bruce.
Yeah.
But he was entertaining him, but I believe he was also trying to get him to open the gate.
So then he confronts Thomas at the movie theater. They're looking at a new Charlie Chaplin movie, and in the bathroom, and he tries to tell. He's like, but here's coming back to the first part. He complains to Thomas. He says, "I don't know what's wrong with you people. I don't want anything really from you, except for maybe acceptance." He didn't want his money. He didn't want anything. He just wanted to say, "Hey, you're my father. I have a father. Hey, just give me a hug and accept me, for who I am." But of course, Thomas Wayne didn't. He wound up punching him in his face and telling him that his mom was crazy and they had to admit her basically into a mental institution. And how did you see that scene with him and Thomas Wayne itself?
I thought it was very interesting because several things. One of them being when you look at Thomas Wayne's features and you look at Arthur's features, you could possibly see that they could potentially be related. It's possible. Yeah. But at the same time, you're like, wow, it's also equally possible that this is true. And the mother is just also very, mentally ill.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes you question everything.
Yeah.
Which is perfect because that's exactly where Arthur was at that time. Is he was questioning, what is my reality?
Yes.
And that's when he went to the asylum or the mental hospital. It was actually, as you stated, mental hospital at the time.
Yes.
And he asked the question about how does one get in here? And then he got the file from the clerk.
Mm-hmm.
Stole it from the clerk.
Yes.
Literally wrestled it out of the clerk's hand and ran off and then started reading the file.
Yeah.
And when he read the file, I believe old memories started coming up.
You think so?
Things that he had repressed. I don't know if he had actual memories, definitive memories, but I think he started to realize, oh my gosh, something did happen when I was young. Oh my gosh, this could be my reality here. And it wasn't all of the things that his mother had filled his head with for most of his life.
So he winds up going home. And wait, did he wind up going home? Because I remember this is when his mom gets put into the hospital, evidently, and he's upset because the cops are questioning him again about this Joker murder, and he's like, "What did you guys say to him? They said that she had a stroke. What did you guys approach her and say to her that put her in a stroke?" And there's a funny sequence because they ask him about his laugh and whether it's part of his clown act. And he basically just says, "No, it's not, fuck off." Which is a funny sequence because he walks into a glass door, not paying attention because it's exit, and they're like, "It's the exit, you dummy." But then that's when he goes over to his mom, and that's when he's sitting with her, and he starts talking about the TV show comes on, and they play basically his version of his comedy stand, and that's where they laugh at him. So
yes,
actually no, I'm off. That happened beforehand, because after the Thomas Wayne portion, when Thomas Wayne punched him, they showed him over the sink, and then it turned to him being over the sink in his apartment, and then he takes everything out of the fridge, goes into the fridge, and then the next day, that's where he becomes full Joker. Because that's when he gets the call. He starts putting on the makeup. He takes care of his he gets a visit basically from his old co-workers, which was a very funny sequence. Let's actually go into that with the co-workers part. I thought the co-worker portion of it was very interesting and told a very, very good story as to who he was, right? So typically Joker in comics has no rhyme or reason, right? He'll shoot you dead, not because you looked at it, because he just felt like it. It's chaos. He's just pure chaos. That's how he's written in the comic. And this version is not, of course, that version of the Joker. There is sense, but a lot of him is basically, as you stated before, he got beat up so much, he hit his breaking point, and now everybody and everything that contributes to the pain of him or to society, he would enact vengeance upon. So we come to the sequence where his co-worker who gave him the gun come in, and it's the short guy, and the guy's like, "Yeah, the cops have been around. They've been asking about the murder. What did you say?" And then the short guy's like, "Hey, they didn't ask me about anything." To which the guy was like, "Yeah, because if the killer was basically a small person, then you'd be in handcuffs already." So, which is a joke in itself. And he's asking him where's the gun? What did he tell the cops? And it gets to a point where I can't remember what set him off. I don't know why it escapes me right now. But basically, he kills that dude, the guy that gave him the gun, and he felt good about it. It was a release unlike other. And the small guy, is sitting there and he's crying, he's scared, the door's locked. He's like, "You could go. I'm not going to kill you." And I swore, and he walks by and he jumps up to scare him. He's like, "Ah!" He's screaming. And I'm like, dude, he's going to kill this guy. There's no way he's going to leave witnesses. And he's like, I can't get the chain off the door. It's too high. To which Arthur gets up, unlocks the chain, gives him a kiss on his head, and lets him go away. But it comes to the point that he didn't do anything because this was the one person at the job who never mistreated him, who was always good to him. So
yes,
let's break down that sequence. What did you pick up from that sequence itself? And also, what was the triggering catalyst to him killing off the big guy who gave him the gun? I for some reason, it escapes me.
Oh, there's several. First and foremost, he gave him the gun, even though Arthur didn't really want it.
Yes.
And then you find out that the reason why Arthur got fired from the job was not just because he took the gun to the children's hospital and it was seen, but also because the man that gave him the gun went and tattled to the boss and said, "Oh yeah, Arthur was trying to buy a 22 off of me a week ago." So he foisted off the blame, making it seem like Arthur was trying to buy all of these guns.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the reason why, because he contributed to Arthur being fired. And then the only reason he's coming into Arthur's face now is because of the simple fact that, first and foremost, he was going on the show, but also because of the mother. And third, because he wanted to find out what Arthur had told the cops about the gun. It wasn't because he cared about Arthur. He was just trying to cover his own butt. And if you recall, when Arthur was grabbing the rest of his stuff after he had gotten fired and he was cleaning out his locker, that guy had nasty things to say to him.
Yep.
So there were a lot of reasons. The guy was kind of a bully. And when he gave him the gun, it was shady when he gave it to him. Me personally, I believe that gun had already been used on somebody else and used in some other crime. And he was just trying to use Arthur as a scapegoat. That's my own personal theory.
Yeah.
But anyway, either way, that guy had only his own self-interest in mind. So the only reason he even visited Arthur was to try to intimidate him and shut him up and find out what he had told the cops already. And Arthur, being empowered now, feeling like he could really defeat anything, I guess, he was just like, you know what? I'm not going to deal with this guy anymore. And he just snapped on him too. And it was brutal.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. The little person, the one with dwarfism. How did you feel about that? Did you feel like he was going to kill him, or did you think that he was going to let him go?
I was unsure at first. I was wondering, I was like, is he going to let him go? Or is he going to really hurt him? His name was Gary, by the way.
Oh, Gary, yes.
Gary.
Thank you.
I was very unsure. And then when he got up to go open the door, I was like, oh goodness, please don't beat him with the. I really got scared.
Yes. Because
I got scared when the guy tried to get by him. Then I was scared again when I realized he couldn't reach the lock.
Yes.
And then I was scared again when he opened the door. I was literally terrified for Gary the whole time.
Yeah, because he opened the door and then he shut it, and that's when
Yeah, he started closing it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, he shut it, and I think that's when he told him, like, you were the only one who was ever nice to me. He kissed him on the head, and then he let him go.
Yep.
So yeah, it was a good scene. And one thing we did miss that we did leave too is that after this part, he had also killed his mother.
Yes.
Which was crazy. That's when, after the Thomas Wayne portion, and he accepted the idea that, one, he was adopted, and two, a lot of the afflictions that he had was because of her and her not her boyfriend and her not protecting him. Then Joaquin kind of, and I stated before, kind of went back to his old roots of, why we hated him so much in Gladiator.
You hated him so much in Gladiator.
Where he, just like in Gladiator, where he killed his father the same way. He took that pillow and he smothered his mother till she died.
While she was in the hospital.
While she was in the hospital. And
this was just after he found out, and he read through the mental illness files.
Yes.
And he realized that everything he had thought he knew about himself could potentially be all a lie.
But here's
he was so angry with her for lying to him.
Oh, yes. But here's the interesting thing with that, though. There's a sequence where he looks at the picture, and I guess that picture, I don't know if he got it from his mom or he got it from the file. And I was listening to other things, and they stated that the writing on the back says, "I like the way you smile, love, Thomas Wayne." That's what the back said. He looked at that, he read that on the back, and then he balls it up and he throws it away, right? And we could go into the theory portion of it. But I think that was his way of looking at it and say, even if it was true that they had a relationship, I'm no longer accepting it. I'm only accepting that I was adopted. I'm not part of this. Let's go forward. Did you look at it in that same way when you saw the picture and he balled up the picture with the writing from Thomas Wayne?
I believe so. I think he just didn't care anymore.
Mm-hmm.
He just like, I've done what I've done. I don't care. It doesn't even matter. I've already made my decision at this point. It does leave some credence to the idea that the mother may have been right, but we'll get into that later.
Yes. So there's a couple of theories, yes, we'll get into later. So let's get to the point where he's in full Joker makeup, and they're playing dun-dun-dun, hey, dun-dun-dun-dun. Like you're at a sports game, and he's dancing on his steps, doing his thing.
Very, very, very famous sequence in the trailer.
It's so great. And the cops are up there looking at him, and they chase him. He gets hit by a car. Running from the cops, he goes onto a train. There's a whole protest of people in Joker masks getting ready to go see Thomas Wayne in protest. He starts a brawl there. One of the cops fires off a gun, and then they get beat up and put into intensive care, and he gets out. So he incites a mob, and he gets out, and he goes on to Franklin's show. And then at this point, Franklin comes to see him. He tells him, as you stated before, you gave me that name, the Joker. So yeah, call me the Joker. And he's like, I don't remember. He's like, yeah. Which in the movie he says, look at this Joker, which was the phrase that he said. And then he comes out, he mesmerized, he does his dance, and the crowd's all into him, and they're like, dude, this guy is awesome. He goes and kisses the doctor, and he sits down, he has a talk with Franklin, and at that point he admits to what he did, and he tells his last joke.
Wait, hold on, before we go there,
go ahead.
Because there's a few very key things.
Mm-hmm.
Arthur has a notebook, and he's supposed to keep his thoughts, a journal and his thoughts in this notebook.
Yes.
He used the notebook for his jokes.
Yes.
And there were a few very important jokes that he wrote in that book.
Yes.
And one of them was, the worst part about having a mental illness is people expect you to behave as if you don't.
Yes.
That's very key. I'm trying to find the other one.
I know the other one. I know the other one. The other one was
okay.
it was along the lines of it says, if I die, will my life make sense? More sense? Will I make more sense dead than alive? Or something to that extent, to basically saying, "Well, I'd be worth more dead than alive." But he instead of sense, he used sense like CENTS, like the coins. Yes,
exactly, and that was very important because that was the line that he had focused on when he found out that he had the opportunity to go on Franklin's show.
Yes,
his original intent was to go on the Franklin show, sit down, and tell his joke, and his joke was to end with him shooting himself.
Yes, knock knock. TV. Knock knock, who's there? Boom. Yes.
Yes. That was his intended joke. But he changed that joke.
When he saw the sense phrase in this book.
Yes. And he realized he had more worth alive, and he had something else to say.
Exactly, because he said something about knock knock, who's there, somebody getting raped, and then the person was like, that's a horrible joke. Yeah, this isn't for the audience. He's like, oh, I'll tell you a better one.
Yeah, he had some very off-color jokes. I would say that right now.
Yes.
But
go ahead.
He had idolized Murray Franklin for a very long time. From the beginning, early parts of this movie, you knew he saw Murray Franklin as a father figure. He just wanted acceptance from him.
Yes.
And then he found out he might actually have a father in Thomas Wayne, and he wanted acceptance from him. Yes. And all he got was derision from both of them. He had already written off Thomas Wayne. He was like, forget him. I don't care about him. But Murray made fun of him repeatedly when he went up and did his comedy sketch.
So before we go to the final joke of that, I want to bring up that point, which is very good, because he has a point where he's discussing with Murray, right, about everything. He says, yeah, the Wall Street guys were only important because the rich, like Thomas Wayne, said they were important. If it was me who was dead, y'all will walk over me and not give a second thought. And Murray's trying to tell him his side, like, yo, that's not true, but you need to look at this. And it almost seemed like Murray in his mind was still defending everything that was wrong after he gave testimony. He's like, because he was like, well, no, it doesn't mean just because you're poor you need to do this, this, and this. And he's like, dude, you don't understand how bad it is. And the rich don't care. I'm not here for political reasons. You know, I'm just showing you I am what this world is becoming, basically, because it doesn't make any sense. And he's talking about how comedy itself is all what was the term he used? Subjective. Yes, thank you. Because he said killing them to him was funny. It was his comedy, killing them. It wasn't political. It was comedy to him.
Yes.
So, and then he did come up, and then he did have that exchange with Murray about how Murray wanted to make fun of him. That was the whole point of why he was here, to make fun of him. And he tells his last joke. So, do you think if Murray accepted what he was saying, agreed to him, everything he was saying, like, you are right, this is wrong, these are the slimes of society, they are bringing it down, do you think the final joke would have ended the way it did? Which is, for those who don't know, the final joke was I hope you know because this is a spoiler, was what happens when you cross the range like mentally I can't remember, homicidal killer with a talk host, and it's bam, and he shoots Murray in the head, something to that extent. But do you think he would have killed Murray at the end if Murray agreed to what he was saying before that final joke itself?
It may have prevented the final joke, but I don't I don't really think it was going to, because at this point, he kind of made up his mind with Murray, even because before he even got on the stage,
Yeah.
you notice that Murray came in, looked him over, and say, "Oh yeah, we'll put him in." And it was kind of that same, "Oh, I can use this guy.
Yeah.
Let's throw him in here. Let's go." And it was another very quick, short exchange, very similar to how his counselor was. Someone that really wasn't paying attention to him, just like his boss. Someone that wasn't listening to him.
Yeah.
Someone who just saw a number, that just saw, "Oh, I can use this person for this. Oh, I can use this about this person." He wasn't a person to him. He was a prop. And that's why I think at that point, he wasn't going to worry about Murray anymore. He had already written Murray off, I think.
Okay.
But more importantly, Murray had gone on and ranted and called him all these bad names and saying how he was the dregs of society and yada 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 on TV. So it was open rejection.
Yes.
And that's when he had stopped thinking about taking his own life and started thinking about taking out all the people like that he saw like that.
So he kills Murray, goes over to camera to deliver a message, but the broadcast then at that time cuts him off. Keep in mind, this is back in the 60s and 70s. They couldn't pause at the minute and cut and edit like they can now. So, but they close to it, and right before he closed, you could see the cops come in and tackle him down. And then he wakes up in the cop car, in which all the people who saw the broadcast, especially the ones in Joker masks, start rioting. They're destroying Gotham. We see the cop car get hit by an ambulance of basically Joker followers who take him out and put him almost in like a Jesus pose on the front, lay him out on the front of the cop car itself. And he wakes up and he realizes what's happening, and he starts doing that dance again in front of everybody, and he takes the blood from his nose and his mouth, and he makes the crooked, bloody smile, and he smiles at everybody. And then we cut to the Opera House, where Thomas Wayne and all this riot is trying to leave with his family. They go down what we know as now as Crime Alley. A guy in the Joker mask comes down with them and says, you get what you deserve, and wind up killing him and his wife, with, of course, Bruce standing there. Typical Batman origin. And then the next scene we're waking up to is him in a mental institution talking to a woman. And she asks him about something, and he says, "You wouldn't get the joke." Which is very interesting, which we'll go back to, because when he says you wouldn't get the joke, he starts thinking backwards, and it's him dancing on the car, or that might have been when he either was putting on a smile, but they do show Bruce Wayne amongst his family. And then the next scene is, of course, him walking out with a trail of blood, footprints, and then him getting chased back and forth as he's trying to exit the hospital. A lot of stuff to unpack there.
Yes.
What did you think about the ending and some of the visuals that they used, and the order of the visuals that they used?
Okay, so I'm going to go backwards a little bit, because that was a lot of broad strokes.
Mm-hmm.
Very first thing to kind of go back to, and I was going to mention this, you mentioned he started to do his dance on top of the car.
Yes.
That slow, almost ballet-like dance where he's kind of almost in a trance there.
Yep.
He does that surrounded by these followers, these people that are, under his thrall, that believe in what they believe he stands for.
Yes.
Because he's now become a symbol to them.
Yes.
of taking down this society that's so corrupt and that just destroys the little man and keeps the man on top getting richer. And so, yeah, they saved him. They literally ran an ambulance into the cop car, rescued him from the car, and waited for him to wake up so that they could practically pledge fealty to him. But before that, and this is something I noticed we'd forgotten to mention, before he got introduced on the Franklin show,
yes,
before the curtain came up, he did the dance.
Yes, he did.
Remember?
And it creeped the guy out a lot.
Yes. But he was doing his dance, so he was getting into the mode. He was becoming that Joker character. Or maybe the persona was coming out.
Yep.
And when he went out on that stage, he had that swagger.
Oh, yeah.
And when he was on the cop car, he had that confidence, that swagger. Now, we were talking a little bit also about the situation with Bruce Wayne and his parents being killed.
Mm-hmm.
That was a completely different person.
Yeah.
It was not Arthur that went into the alley. It was a person with a clown mask.
We'll say Joe Chill.
Participating in all of this chaos.
Yes.
And he waited.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he waited. We'll just use Joe Chill since that's the famous one who actually did in the comics.
Books,
yeah.
Joe Chill is the one that killed Thomas and Martha Wayne in Crime Alley.
Yep.
So we'll call him Joe Chill for now.
Yep.
He shot them, and he said, "You get what you deserve."
Mm-hmm.
To Thomas Wayne.
Yep.
So you know that there was a lot of unrest, and Thomas had not made any friends.
Oh yeah.
He had a lot of enemies at this point, especially the little people, the low people, I should say, the blue collar workers, the people that are just very disgruntled at this point with the situation of Gotham. And of course, we know this is the origin story of the Batman. So we won't really go into that one right now.
No.
Because, it's been covered before many times. But when we next see the Joker after all of this happened, we don't know how he got caught.
Yes, we'll go into it.
He's in the asylum.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's still considered the mental hospital. But the hospital at this time. He is a new social worker.
Mm-hmm.
And she's practically asking the same kind of questions as the old one.
Yep.
And his response is, as you stated, you wouldn't get the joke.
Yeah, pretty much, yes.
Then we see him walking down the hall. And he's leaving a trail of red footprints.
Yep.
So we're going to presume that he just killed that social worker.
Yes.
And that's when it kind of gets Mark Hamill-y Joker. Because you see him go to the end of the hall, and I believe he looks both ways, and then he goes one way.
Yep.
And then a few moments later, you see him run the other way with an orderly chasing him.
Yep.
And a few moments later, he runs back the other way with the orderly still chasing him.
Like a Scooby-Doo open door, multiple door scenes.
Yes. Very cartoony.
Yeah.
Very, Mark Hamill Joker. Which fits at this point because he's just over the top, and he's pushed it to that's where his reality is now.
Yep. So, real quick, anything to add before you give your final grade and we go into the theories?
I think we covered most of the things. There's a lot of nuances, and a lot of my nuances are going to be theories. So, we didn't actually touch one thing, though. I just realized Zazie Beetz' character.
Yeah, we'll go into that in the theories because I think that comes in. We could talk about it. Yeah, because it comes into the theory portion of it. So we'll talk about that there.
Yes. Well, I'm just going to say throughout the movie, Sophie was a sense of compassion and empathy for Arthur.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And throughout a lot of the things, she was there. When he went and performed in front of the at the comedy show, his first performance, she was there. She was the only one to laugh at his joke.
Yep.
When his mother was hospitalized, she sat with him all night in the room to comfort him. They went on a date together.
Yep.
Ate food together. So she was his form of comfort until she wasn't.
Yep.
And I'll just leave it like that for now.
Okay, what's your grade?
I give it an A for pretty much everything overall. The story was very powerful. The cinematography was excellent. The script, really, really good. It's an extremely polarizing movie.
Yes.
And it is extremely disturbing movie. Again, I cannot emphasize it. It was very thought-provoking. I really have so much to think about and unpack with this, and I think this type of movie should have that kind of impact on a person. But I will not be watching this again anytime soon.
All right, for me, I'm very close. I give it an A minus. I think the story, I think the acting was excellent by Joaquin Phoenix. I thought he was great. I wish there was more of Zazie Beetz' character and a couple of other characters. I just wish that they elaborate a little bit more in the story on certain elements, more like the Thomas Wayne situation. Mainly give us actual, I guess you could say they did give us closure, as you take it the way you want to take it. But cinematography was great. The story was good. I loved all of it. I definitely give it A minus. As you stated, I don't know if it's, for me, I could probably watch it a second time, but then after that, I probably watch it again. But in terms of WB movies, and it really sucks. It's like all the great get to you like, man, this is a really, really, really good movie, are all Batman movies, and it's really sad. It's really sad. But hey, if that's what it is, that's what it is. One thing I will say for comment is this movie was getting a lot of flack about the violence. I don't really think the violence was as bad. Yeah, was it graphic? Yeah, but to me, I don't see it any different than half the other movies that we see. You know, like John Wick is doing the same stuff that this guy is doing for like an hour and 40 minutes because somebody kicked or killed his dog. You know, I don't know. We didn't cover it, but the violence. Do you think it was overly graphic?
I think the context is a little different from John Wick to this movie.
Yeah.
But in terms of the graphicness of it, no.
Yeah.
If you compare John Wick, who is literally blowing people's kneecaps and brains out every 5 seconds, doing his gun kata,
Yep.
versus the Joker, who arguably, yes, the few very graphic deaths were quite graphic, but it was no more graphic than John Wick.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're in agreement. We like the movie. We definitely will recommend it, right? You recommend it to others to see?
Yes. I do not recommend taking your child.
Oh, yes.
I cannot emphasize this enough. Yes, this is technically a comic book movie. This is not for children. Do not take your children to see this movie.
Exactly.
And if you are a person that gets triggered easily by disturbing images and situations, you may have a problem with this movie.
Now, here's the question for you. If you're not a comic book fan, let's say you don't care about the comics at all, would you still recommend this movie for a person? Does a person need to be a comic book fan for this movie?
No. This is actually, I said comic book movie, but this is really not a comic book movie.
Yep.
It is based it's based on the characters that are from a comic book, but the way that they treat the material, this is a drama.
Yep.
This is very much a it's a look at society. It's commentary.
Yeah,
It
I
really is
agree.
a commentary film.
Yeah, I agree.
And I appreciate that. And I appreciate that they're not trying to go, super duper comic book with this, because it's a very serious topic that's not getting enough address.
Mm-hmm.
Mental illness and how we treat people with mental illnesses, and also the issues with society as a whole right now.
Yeah.
Now they've made it a little bit more extreme. Well, no, I can't even say that. It's not even that extreme. This is how society is for a lot of people, and yet we ignore it, and we ignore them, and we keep cutting funding for things that need to be funded for the people that really need the help. But that's a whole nother subject, and we're not going to touch on that today.
Yep. Okay, so let's get into theories, right? So, as you brought up Zazie Beetz out. So, in the beginning of the movie, when he's first watching Franklin's show, he imagines himself on the show, which most people would typically do. But we get our first sense that reality is not always what we see in this movie with Zazie Beetz. We see him kiss the girl, they're dating, as you stated. They're going out to getting meals. Anytime when his mom is sick, she's there. She's always there at the club. And we get to a point where he's sitting there and he realizes that she's not his girlfriend. They've never went out on a date. He's never asked her out. He's never done anything. And then we get the sequence as was it after Thomas Wayne or his mother dying that he walks into her apartment. He's sitting down. She comes out. She sees him. She's scared. And she's like, "Oh, you're Arthur from this apartment. Can I get your mother? It's just me and my daughter. Please don't hurt us. Is there somebody we could get for you?"
Yeah, this was after the mother, because the order of deaths were the guys on the train, and then I believe the mother.
Yes. And then the co-workers.
Then the co-workers. Then Franklin.
Yes.
Murray. I'm sorry, Murray Franklin. I said his name. It's Murray Franklin.
Yes.
So she is just in her home.
Yeah.
I gather she was asleep. Her daughter was asleep. Arthur comes into the building, goes up to her floor, which I believe they actually were on the same floor.
Yes.
And then literally goes to her apartment, opens the door, walks in and sits down on her couch and is sitting there. And I'm gathering she had heard the door open, and she comes out of her bedroom and sees Arthur sitting there. And she's terrified.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's like, who is this man and why is he sitting on my couch?
Yeah.
And then when he turns, she realizes she'd seen him before and he was a neighbor down the hall.
Yep.
So that right there shows us that every time we have seen her, she has been a figment of his imagination since the first time we saw her, which was in the elevator. It was her and her daughter. And she smiled at him and made a little gesture, because they kind of had a little joke about how bad the apartment building was, how the whole place was falling down around them.
Yeah.
And from there, his one interaction with her, he made her into this ideal girlfriend that he was so in love with and that he was hanging out with, that would get his jokes and come support him at the comedy club and come support him when his mother was sick. But none of those things ever happened.
Nope. So the reason why we bring this up is because we find out, as we stated, that not everything is real for Arthur Fletch, right? So one of the theories that's going around is that the whole events of the movie either A, never happened, or B, is him remembering something in the past. And the reason why we go to that is in the beginning, when he's first talking and he's laughing, he's talking to his social worker. She says something about him being in a mental institute, and which is a quick flash of him banging his head against the glass. And then we go back again at the end of the movie of him back in that mental institute, which we don't even know how he even got. There's no rhyme, there's no reason as to how we got to it. He's just there, and he's talking to a psychiatrist. So a lot of people are now theorizing that maybe most of that movie might have not happened, or it might have just been him remembering while talking to a psychiatrist. How do you feel about this theory that it may have not happened, or it just might have been just him remembering himself? He's been basically in the institution for a long time, and he's just remembering or coming up with his own theory as to what happened.
I'm gonna say I kind of believe that, because we did have that moment at the very beginning of the movie where we saw him in the mental institution.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes sense. Now, he may have actually been put into a mental institution prior and then released, and that's why he was seeing the social worker. Because that was my original theory.
Yeah.
So maybe I will have to watch this one more time. Dang it. I'm not ready. I'm not mentally ready. But it's a very plausible theory. I just want to remember what the social worker at the beginning of the movie said. Because what she says is very important. But because you're just getting into the movie, there's little small nuances that you may not really pay attention to in the first watch.
I thought it was a weird scene. I thought it was very weird. Because it was like really short, like half a second phrase, like bang, and then it's back again.
Yeah.
And another thing that people always bring about how all this may be a memory is because Joaquin Phoenix is an old guy, right? And you figure he worked with his mom. His mom worked for him about 30 years ago, which would mean that he would have to be 30-something. And Joaquin Phoenix looks like he's 40 or 50, the actor, right?
Yeah, he looks like he's around the same age as Thomas Wayne. Exactly.
So how would he be Thomas Wayne's son unless it was all memory? Because sometimes people will say, you ever have a memory like of previous time, like maybe you were a teen or something, but you don't see yourself as a teen, you see yourself as yourself now. So a lot of people are thinking that this might be a memory thing where he's experiencing, he's in basically psychiatric help, and he probably Murray. He probably did murder Murray, and they're probably asking him what led to it, and he's thinking about it back when he was in his 30s, but as himself now.
I think that could be plausible again, because when Arthur and Thomas Wayne were standing right in front of each other, I did have that thought that they look like they're the same age.
Yeah.
So I had that thought, and I considered that. But I wasn't sure, so I just kind of filed it away for later review.
Okay.
But it is very possible. And again, they still never show how he got caught and put into the hospital.
Exactly.
Because we know he was freed by these other people.
We think.
And there's all this writing going on. According to his memories.
Yes. Yeah. So another theory is that he died. So people think either A, he died in the squad car, and what he was seeing was basically the last memories of him before he died. And number two, a lot of people think he died when he went into the refrigerator. What do you think of those theories? That one, he either died in a squad car when he was getting taken away, or two, he died in the refrigerator when he went into the refrigerator itself?
I'm going to say very much a no to the refrigerator thing.
Yes.
I don't believe that, because the simple fact that then Murray would still be alive.
Yes.
I'm just saying, guys, come on now.
Yeah.
So if that's the situation, then there would have been no point to do the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
With the squad car, it's possible that, the original quote-unquote Joker, Arthur Fleck, died there.
Yeah.
But somebody else took up the mantle. It's possible.
He looked like he was dead.
I don't buy it, but it's possible.
The another theory too is that all the stuff of him and the ambulance and everything never happened. That they literally in the squad car they literally took him to asylum, and everything of him being free, dancing on the car, the groups of people accepting him were all in his head, was his own fantasy while he was in the institution. So from the moment he's in the car and they're driving away, that's and when the ambulance comes and hits the car and he gets taken out, all that's just in his head. It's all his own little fantasy world that he's living in. How do you feel about that
Also
theory?
possible.
Plausible.
I don't agree with that theory either,
Yeah.
but it would make more sense in the sense that then I would go, okay, that's how he got into the hospital. Sure, why not? But for the impact of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
it's more interesting to think that during all the looting and the rioting and all, some folks who had, you know, identified with this guy as him being their, I don't want to quite say messiah, but kind of their figurehead,
Yeah.
would want to free him, because at this point they're all kind of anarchists.
Yeah.
They're down with society. They want to get rid of, you know, this law that has just kept them all oppressed. And that was something I wanted to also touch on. Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so one of the things I wanted to touch bases on is regarding the fact that society has also not only failed the people with the mental illnesses, according to this film, but also how society was failing the people who needed the help the most, the people that, you know, are, you know, in the slums, that have the least amount of money, that are struggling to make ends meet. And yet, all the time, the people making the decisions are cutting funding for them so that they can build bigger and better theaters for them to watch Charlie Chaplin or whatever else they were doing.
Yeah.
But you could see that funding was being cut all the time, everywhere, for people like Arthur. And one of the things I mentioned was the funding for the social worker. How her room, her office looked extremely just jam packed with papers, and she just wasn't listening to Arthur because she had probably had so many other people she'd already seen or still had to see and get through. I think that the people were identifying with Arthur and rallying behind what they believed was his cause. And when he killed those three guys from Wall Street, that was kind of a rallying cry of, we're not going to take this anymore. The rich keep getting richer off of our hard work. Forget this. We're rebelling.
So one of the last and biggest theories is Arthur the son of Thomas Wayne? The one thing that would piss so many people off is that Joker is Batman's brother. Is he the son of Thomas Wayne? What are your thoughts on this theory?
I could have sworn there was one version of Joker that was the son of Thomas Wayne in the comics. I'll have to do my research. I don't recall which one, but I believe that was actually in this movie. I still believe it's very possible. Even though the whole thing with the mother, you know, you find out that she was supposedly worked for Thomas Wayne in the house, and she had a mental illness and they had to put her in the asylum or the hospital and all of these other things. And then she adopted Arthur. I still say that was a lie, because after Arthur killed his mother and he went back home, he picked up one of the pictures of her, turned it over, and it was signed, you know, as you stated, I love your smile, love Thomas Wayne, or something else like that. It could just be, you know, nothing. But why would Thomas Wayne have a picture and have said love Thomas Wayne to her? That leaves it possible that maybe they did have an illicit affair. maybe she did get pregnant with his child, and to hush everything up, as she had said, because he was of a completely different social class than her, and they forced her to sign papers, and it was better for Thomas that way, and because she idolized him so much, she would be willing to falsify documents stating that she, adopted Arthur if it meant that it would help Thomas Wayne, because Penny Fleck was that in love with him. Also, Thomas Wayne had the money to have documents drawn up, to have lawyers, do things shady, to get her committed on some trumped up charges, and get the document trail to say whatever he wanted it to say. Because the simple fact, he had that money, he could do that. And confronting him later, years later, when he has his life practically perfect, he's running for mayor and all these other things. Of course, he wouldn't want his illegitimate child to show up suddenly and have to acknowledge him. That would ruin his campaign.
Yep.
And his reaction was so strong, it kind of made me suspicious.
So, I also agree with this theory. And I want to look at, this is my evidence as to why I believe this theory might be true. 1, Penny had several disorders, and the disorders that she supposedly has, her son has, which shows that it's most likely hereditary, right? So the idea that she, quote unquote, adopted her son, I find to be very wrong and inaccurate, because he seems to suffer from the same mental illnesses that his mother supposedly suffers from, right? 2, when he went to go see, to confront Thomas Wayne at Wayne Manor, and we ran into the butler was like, "Oh, yes, Penny Fletch. Yeah, I remember her. Yeah, you gotta go." If Penny was just a nutcase that used to work there 30 years ago, no one would care. Nobody would remember her. She would have came and she would have went, right? The only people that people really remember are ones that had impact, which is usually like, oh yeah, we gotta make sure this doesn't get out. So I agree. I think that even though they left it one way, I think that the Joker, Arthur Fletch, may be an illegitimate child of Penny's. At the most, let's say he's not. He's definitely Penny's child. He was not adopted. And so I find it very hard to believe that he would have the same mental issues that she would have. I forget, it was like narcissism, and there was a couple other things that they said that she had, which is a classic book, Joker, Mental Illnesses itself. And did I want to ask? I'm trying to think, was there anything else I wanted to add to that when thinking about it? The picture, I think, was proof in itself, because the picture was just her. And why would you write on the back of a picture of just her, "I like your smile"? Thomas Wayne.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to throw.
He signed it "Love Thomas Wayne" as well.
Yeah. Now I will throw something out. Maybe she sent him a picture, and he just wrote it back and just sent it back to her, and it was like, "Yeah, here you go, it's my autograph." That is a possibility. Because when he did see Arthur, he's like, "What do you want? You want an autograph or something?" So maybe he saw her, she had a picture of herself, and he's like, "Yeah, I like your smile," and just wrote, on the back of it, and it was nothing. And maybe she was just a groupie. It is that possibility, but the way I was looking at it, I don't believe that he was just adopted. I believe that, yeah, he was definitely Penny's child, and I do believe he probably was the love child of Penny and Thomas Wayne.
I agree. I do believe that he was the love child. Interesting note, that gentleman that we were not sure if he was Alfred or not.
Yes.
He is listed as Alfred.
So oh, wow. Jeez. Alfred, you need to study some martial arts, buddy. Oh man. Okay, so any other theories you want to go over before I go into closing thoughts on the movie itself?
I do have a theory that Arthur killed um, Zazie Beetz' character Sophie after he
Yes,
realized that
yes. That was when we didn't go into.
it was
Yes.
all a delusion. Because after you see him leave her apartment and go back to his apartment, you also see lights flashing outside
Yes.
5 or so minutes later. And I think that's ambulance, possibly cop lights as well.
That's
So
a
I
very
have a
good point.
theory that he killed her. You also never see her again.
Yep. That's a very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, because that was it, Aaron. I agree. I think when he saw her and at that point where she would just reject him and once again not listen, I think, yeah, he was off his kilter and he probably did kill her.
Yeah. And by that point in the movie, also, he was completely out of meds.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he's full
yeah.
Joker.
Yeah.
Any other theories? I know there's got to be one other one.
Oh, we could dissect this movie for hours. I'm going to be honest. But I think we've done a pretty good job.
My mom always said I was here to put a smile on the world. His soft little voice. Oh man, what a great movie. So let's close it out. So from Warner Bros., right? This will probably make a good chunk of money. I'm thinking probably about $500-600 million. I think it opened up to about $900 million. 90 million, not 900, $90 million for the opening weekend. It dethroned Venom itself for the top, movie for October itself. So it did very, very well. I think Warner Brothers is going to make a lot of money off of this. Now, this was intended to be a one-of, right? Now, a lot of people are throwing theories that evidently Bruce Wayne might be leading to the new Batman or something else. But, oh yeah, that's right. Before we go there. So the joke itself, right? The joke, when he says you want to understand the joke, a lot of people think that it's in the future because he knows that Batman is Bruce Wayne. And because when he says that, it shows Thomas Wayne, Martha Wayne dead, and Bruce Wayne crying. And he says you wouldn't understand the joke. What do you think that meant? When he's
I think it's a reference to the line where he says, "You're only one bad day away from being me."
Yeah. Yeah. yeah, it might be because in that sense of him dying, even though he didn't personally kill, he was the catalyst to him dying. He did create, in this sense, Batman itself, the character. So yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you think that was the joke then? You think that was the joke?
I think that could potentially be the joke because of how they showed it. I mean, there's a lot of things that it could be, but that kind of strikes a chord for me.
Awesome. So going out, this was supposed to be a one-off movie. The idea was they call it, like, DC Comics has Black Label, and these are like one-off, like, graphic stories that they do in the comics, and the Joker movie is considered part of the Warner Brothers movies Black Labels, one-offs, right? But if this is successful, right? Let's say it sells 600, let's say it even goes up as high as $800 million, right? Do you think we get a sequel to the Joker, or do you think we get other Batman or other DC Rogue Gallery movies along a more realistic more realistic style? So let's say we get a Riddler story, or we get a Reverse Flash story, villain origin stories. What do you think will come of this if it is successful from a box office standpoint?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know what DC is going to be doing in the future.
They don't know either.
I don't think they know either. This does not feel like the other movies at all.
No.
The ones that they just recently did.
Correct.
This is a completely different feel, a completely different style. It's very rooted in reality. I don't know if they could do a Reverse Flash in this. I think they could do a Riddler in this, but not a Reverse Flash, because that's when you're starting to get into meta and superpowers, wherein the Joker doesn't have superpowers.
But
Riddler have superpowers.
But wait. Let me argue. You could do a Reverse Flash where it's about him and idolizing his idol and all this stuff, and he gets turned away at the end, and at the end he does whatever he needs to do to become the villain. You can still have it all grounded though, and it ends at that point. Point. So I'm saying you can still do it.
Show the power, because otherwise it's just a man.
Yeah.
No, because you have to still have the power. So I don't agree with that.
It's about the drama, right? It's about the drama. That's what I'm saying.
Not a comic book movie.
No, I'm saying
stated, and that is correct.
But you can.
I don't think that it's possible.
Yeah, you can do it.
If they're going to stay with this extremely realistic vein, Riddler, yes. Reverse Flash, no. They could do the Killing Joke. That would be very dark.
So what would you like to see? Would you like to see a sequel to this, if it does well, or would you like to see other characters?
No, I mean, realistically, I don't really know what I want at this point, because they had me vested in this other stuff, and then they're doing this, and this is something completely different. I would like to see some other stuff like this. I'm hoping that it's not going to be quite as disturbing and polarizing, because that in itself is a problem. People aren't going to want to keep watching movies that are going to depress them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
This was a very good movie, but it is a very depressing movie in the fact that it puts you in a mindset where you're really starting to think about some deep and heavy things. And that's a good thing. We as a society should be doing that. But I don't want to go every 2 to 3 months to a movie theater to be depressed.
Yeah.
So, yes, I would like to see something else in this vein. No, I don't want to see it this year.
No, I never want to be this year. But
you know what I mean, though.
Yeah. Here's the problem. Here's the problem with this movie. It's supposed to be one-off, but Joaquin Phoenix did such a great job with this character. And you see, in this, let's be honest, this was an origin story for this character. I kind of want to see where it goes. I'm not going to lie. I would like to see him interact with other characters and see where it goes. You don't have to have a guy who dresses up like a bat beating them up or different things like that, but I would like to see where it goes, whether it's him influencing other villains, and from his craziness he creates other villains, and we go into the stories of that, how they were either inspired or literally created. I don't know, I like the character so much, I kind of want to see more of them. And that's the problem.
I agree with you on that. I do want to see where they're going to take his story.
Yeah.
But again, they have to choose their subject matter.
Yeah.
Very specifically, because the only way I can see them going from here is either A, they stay in the exact same vein, or B, they take the start of the end of this movie where it starts to get a little bit more fantastical, and they start slowly evolving it into the comic book universe, so to speak, that we're used to, where things slowly get a little bit more, over the top, if that makes sense.
So I'll give you an example of what I would like to see out of this movie. I look at the Joker movie as Glass. I would like to see Unbreakable, and I would like to see Split. That's what I'm basically stating. And both of those are people with superpowers that is super grounded. That's why I keep saying you can do Reverse Flash in this sense and keep it very well grounded, because Glass, Unbreakable, all of them do this kind of movie. And I'm just saying I would like to see more out of it, where the Joker is the Glass or Split, whatever version of it is, and we do another movie that's maybe tied to this universe that you don't know, and it looks at a totally different thing, whether it's the creation of Batman, whether it's the creation of another villain, another hero, whatever the case may be. But it's still somewhat grounded in this universe and is somewhat grounded, but do it in almost like one of those shattered split glass universes. And that's what I would like to see out of it.
I get your point. I do believe that they probably will be doing the Batman origin again. Sorry. But
or again what?
Again. But we're going to get Twilight Boy.
Yeah.
I don't know his name. I'm sure people... Christian something or other, or was that Kristen Stewart? You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Howdy Vampire Boy that sparked.
It's Pattinson. Robert Pattinson.
Robert Pattinson. Him. Yeah. So they've already cast him for Batman.
Yeah.
The kid that was in this movie could kind of pass as a young Robert Pattinson. So I get it. I see where they're going with it. I'm fine with it. Tell how he goes from sad rich boy whose parents died to angry vigilante man beating up, people in the night. Fine, no problem. We got to do that again. But tell it in a more grounded way is what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Make it so that this movie and that movie fit. If you're going to take this and launch your universe with this, fine, launch it with this. If this is just going to be, DC Black, then fine. This movie is just a one-shot DC Black movie. Yep. No problem. But just make a decision.
So as far as we understand, Robert Pattinson's Batman is totally separated from this universe. It's not part of this universe. This Batman is not that. And even if you look at it from a time frame, this movie's taking place in like the 60s, maybe as late as 70s.
No, this was the 80s.
No,
was the 80s.
This is 60s. 60s, 70 era.
No, this was the 80s.
I'm telling you, 67. Where did you see 80s? We'll look this up. Where?
Movie.
No way. I don't remember that. Did they say the 80s? All right, well, I'll believe you, but I could have sworn because everything said that this movie was the 60s, because one of the what people were drawing from it was that this movie may lead up to Ben Affleck's Batman, because he would be in the right age at 40 something to the Bruce Wayne. Yeah, to the Bruce Wayne.
Are you sure that wasn't an early theory?
No. The movie is not tied to anything, but people are saying because it took place in the 60s and now we're getting rid of Affleck and we're starting a brand new one, it couldn't be Robert Pattinson's character because it would have to be the 80s or 90s, because Pattinson's supposed to be playing a very young Batman, like year one style Batman. But in terms of grounding, I guess you could say we already got it in The Dark Knight with the Nolan series, because that was very, very grounded. But yeah. So, any final thoughts before we close this out on Joker?
Okay, so this is what I'm saying, and I found the information.
Yes.
They said Joker doesn't explicitly state which year it's set in, but contextually clues reveal that it was placed in 1981. Okay. Because, and the reason I knew it was 1981, some of the papers had 80s dates on it. Next thing, his outfits, all of their outfits were early 80s, late 70s gear.
Yeah, I was thinking 70s, yeah.
It was early 80s, though. If you look at it, it was early 80s. They were out of the 70s and they were into the early 80s with their gear, with all of the clothes that they were wearing.
If that's the case, then you can link it to Patterson. Because he would be in his 30s, and let's say it was 80 something. 30 would put us in about 2020. So yeah. So if let's say he was 8 years old, right? And we'll say it's like 1984, 83. Right? And you go and he's 33 years old. That will put you at 2017. 2018. So yeah, you could make it depend on age. You could finagle it.
Yeah. And if you want to reference this, it was another Screen Rant, John Orkelios.
Okay, cool.
I'm saying his last name so wrong. I'm sorry.
Any last thoughts?
Orkiola. There. Orkiola. John Orkiola.
Last thoughts, so we can close it out.
Last thoughts?
Yes.
Very interesting movie. I can't emphasize that enough. Very thought-provoking. Definitely worth watching more than once to get all of the nuances. I just personally cannot sit through it again right yet.
Okay.
I highly recommend people to go see it, though.
Yes.
If you can handle the subject matter. I think it's worth a viewing by a lot of people. If nothing else, people should hopefully take out of this, we need to help people like this and stop ignoring them.
I agree. I think this was a beautiful movie, well shot. I think the subject matters, especially now in this time in the society we live in, is something that we need to address. And especially with, and I don't want to go into it, but you have mass shootings and stuff like that. This is something that we need to look into. You always keep hearing the excuse of mental health, but we don't see what's being done about it. And I think this movie was a good thing of showing, as a society, we fail a lot of these people. Some of them you can't help, but we do fail a lot of people. And in this case, in this movie, Gotham failed Arthur Fleck. There was multiple times in which they could have interjected and kept him from escalating to the point that he does by the end of this movie, and they failed him. And we as a society, we need to look at our own people, and we need to stop ignoring them, start listening to what they're saying, and we need to start helping them so that we, don't suffer some of the escalations from the build-up. But great movie, love it. Recommend everybody go see it, go check it out, support it. WB finally landed a really, really good movie that I can't really say a lot of negative stuff about. So yeah,
I feel it's a very unique movie too. It's not like the comic book movies, and if they want to take this as their way of telling their comic books movies, go for it. You don't have to be Marvel. You can do something completely different. Just stick with one thing. That's all I beg of you.
Do you think it's going to get an Oscar nod?
It's possible because it won a lot of the same awards that the previous winners did at the Independent Film Festival and things like that. So it's very possible.
I honestly think Joaquin should be nominated for Best Actor. He killed this role, man. Like I said, it's just like the little nuances was just crazy.
I completely forgot it was him.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like the other characters he's played, I would never recognize this being him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree.
All right, Zesco, we are wrapping up. For the folks that are listening, can you tell them where they can find you if they want to follow up and ask you more questions?
Certainly. You can follow me on Twitter at Sezgo and on Facebook at Sezgo Koneko.
So how do you pronounce? Yeah.
Tzezuko.
That's Tzezuko. Thank you.
That's correct.
And you can also follow me, Khan, on Twitter. That's right, on Twitter at ARNGM. That's where, and then also on Twitch at ARN as in Nancy, GM as in Mary, where I usually stream Monday through Fridays between 10 p.m. and 12 a.m. Eastern. Stop by, say hello, what's up, and let us know below, what did you think of the Joker movie itself? Do you agree with some of the theories? And if you have any other cool theories, definitely post them below. If you enjoyed this film, remember to give us the thumbs up and a sub, please, on the YouTubes. Let us know whether good or bad, what you like and what you didn't like. And hopefully, we'll have more reviews coming up in the future. What do you think, Zesco?
Yeah, definitely. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think we got Gemini Man coming out this weekend, so maybe we could do that one next.
Yep, sounds like a plan.
All right, folks, this is the end of the show. Remember, stay safe always. Peace out.
Bye.